Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is Sunday morning, June 2nd, 2024, and there's only one person in the world who could get me out of bed into the studio at 8 a.m. to do an episode, and that's Heather Gay. How's it going, Heather? Welcome back.
It's going great. Thank you. Welcome, Sabbath morning. We are here. I mean, I really did think there is something poignant about me waking up on Sunday morning to be here. And I saw everybody going to church, everybody, the cars driving by. And
was that healing or triggering or both?
It is, I think it's triggering. But because I'm in a different place now, it's healing because I don't want to be there. I used to, for a long time, I would feel angst, like, oh, I'm supposed to be there or they're there on time or you know what I mean? Or they're there at 8 a.m. because it's early, right? So it's the early people walking in to start the early meetings. But now it's just like, I don't want to say those fools, but yeah, I feel like I don't have to go, but I'm going to commune and talk and do all the things that I would hope to get at church.
Yeah. Yep. I relate.
No pressure.
None. So y'all will recognize Heather from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We had her on several years ago, right after during the first season, right?
Yeah, right after the first season. We hadn't had it even aired yet?
Maybe not. Or maybe it was right around.
I think it was starting to air.
I think I'd watched a couple episodes.
Yeah, because the episodes were happy. Yeah. It was airing when I came on. Wow, that was season 1.
Yeah, what year was that?
And now we just finished season 5.
What year was season 1?
Season 1 was, we filmed it in it aired in November of 2019.
Okay. So that's 5 years ago. Yeah. And then y'all will know that we had Heather back a couple years ago now. Mm-hmm. For her best-selling New York Times amazing Bad Mormon book that I loved.
Thank you.
And that's gone well, right?
Yeah, it's been great. Sales have been wonderful. It's like now we're past the housewife tokenism, and it's people that are reading it and handing it to their friends and sharing it. And the book has been, everything for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I love the book. So please buy it and read it if you haven't yet. But if that weren't enough, we are here to, number one, catch up with Heather, but 2, to make what I think is one of the most exciting announcements in my time as Mormon Stories podcast host in terms of one of the main goals I have on Mormon Stories, which is informed consent and supporting Mormons and others, in their religious transitions. And the announcement is, drum roll, please. Do you want to make it?
Well, you make it.
Okay. All right. So I'll use my words.
Yes.
And then you correct me because I may get it wrong.
Your words will be better than mine. Okay. But yes, go.
So I'll say years ago, when I was trying to make sense of Mormonism, I saw the Going Clear documentary, which was about Scientology. And then it was followed up by an amazing series called something like Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath. I don't know if I got that exactly right.
I think that's exactly right.
It was like an 8 or 10 part series where Leah would kind of go around and they would just cover different aspects of Scientology with Leah kind of as a main figure to be the lens through which to see the Scientology experience. And then, of course, there was, Mike Rinder and others who helped out. And that was a really important show. It was a successful show. And it was formative for me. And I know it was formative for a lot of people. So about the possibility of doing something similar, but looking at Mormonism with you as the centerpiece instead of obviously they're Leah Remini. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we know exactly what it's going to be, but it's an opportunity to expand the format to Mormonism, to talk about Mormonism and the stories that are out there and to just kind of continue unraveling the world we live in as Mormons, post-Mormons, ex-Mormons, and other people that are processing realizations later in life about the way they've lived their life, the things they've been taught, and the ways it's affected them. And I think that it's timely because, well, I mean, you could tell me more why it's timely, but doesn't it feel like, was there a great purge in Mormonism in 2020? Does it feel like 2019 and 2020, there started to be like people leaving in droves, or is that just an urban legend?
No, I think with the rise of the internet, there's definitely been this acceleration of people leaving the church, both leaving in terms of just dropping off going inactive and, not resigning, but also a bunch resigning, but also a bunch who became PMOs where they just left in their mind, but they had to stay in.
Okay, PMOs is physically in, mentally out.
Exactly, yeah. So, but yes, there's certainly been, and this is important, that's not just a Mormon phenomenon. There's this nationwide or even global phenomenon called the rise of the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, that the Pew Foundation has told us about, which is that most Christian churches in the developed world are in serious decline. So it's not just Mormons, it's Episcopalians, it's Lutherans, it's Methodists, it's evangelical Christians, Catholics, Southern Baptists. And there are a lot of reasons for that. The internet, younger generations, LGBT issues, political polarization, there are lots of reasons. But in the end of the day, yes, Mormonism is hemorrhaging for sure. And I would say COVID, the 2015 stuff, the LGBT stuff, the November 2015 policy kicked a ton of people out. And then I think COVID just knocked a ton of people out in addition to the broader movements. So anyway.
Yeah. And I'm fast. And I guess so essentially we're looking at doing a TV project where people will share their stories in a format that they haven't before. Or that they're interested in. And so I really want to talk about soliciting stories of people that maybe were totally believing up until COVID. And then COVID, what was it at COVID that made you stop going, or why are you at where you're at now? And do you have a story that's compelling that you want to share?
Yeah. So this is a call, at the beginning of this episode, we're making a call. We're announcing.
We're calling out to the world.
We're issuing
calling out around the world.
And we're issuing a calling. A calling, if you feel so called, we would like to extend to you a calling. No, if people are struggling in Mormonism and they would want to tell their story.
I mean, I think it's going to be formatted based on the stories people want to share.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's I just think there's something, let's talk a little bit about my journey.
Yeah.
Because I was a PMO, I guess.
Physically and mentally
I was
out?
physically in. No, I'm still mentally in so many ways. So I'm not a PMO. What am I? Besides just messed up.
You're a bad Mormon.
I'm a bad Mormon. But
but we're all bad Mormons.
We're all bad. It's hard to be a good Mormon.
It's impossible to be a good Mormon.
It's very, very hard. Yeah. But I think back to my, I think back to my journey, and I hate using the word journey, but it's the only word that works, because I was willing to go on Housewives. I was willing to, that kind of sums it up. If you're a Mormon woman willing to go on Real Housewives of any city, let alone Salt Lake City, then you are physically and mentally out on some level. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the show and what the show does is just, it's very hard to be active, law-abiding Mormon. We've seen a lot of people on the show that identify as Mormon, but the way they live their life is not exactly the Mormon way, right?
Right.
I don't want to get into too many specifics, but it's hard, it would be difficult. And I was willing to go on the show and reveal a lot of my life, which included drinking and dating and things that I would never want to admit to my children or to my Mormon friends or to anyone. But I was willing to do that on TV, yet I still was scared to come on Mormon Stories, was scared to write a book that would, called Bad Mormon and is definitely scared to put my picture on the cover of that book. And that to me is still so fascinating that like I was thinking that I could keep up the facade or still be accepted and embraced because I hadn't publicly or declaratively put myself in a position that was anti. And like, I've joked with you a lot about using the word anti. I'm very, very uncomfortable with it, mostly because of the anti-Nephi Lehis. But it's the more that I've transitioned out, or the more distance I've put between that community and that way of thinking and those type of reinforcements, has enabled me to recognize like that I've only been able to heal by sharing my story publicly, by ripping that Band-Aid off, by like being open to joining the ranks of the community of others, the community of people who have been out there saying, this has hurt me, this is wrong, this can't be true. And I feel like I owe it to this community to like apologize for not being out there sooner and for, being an apologist for so long. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the only part that doesn't make sense is you apologizing.
That's ingrained deeply in me.
Yeah, no, just because, we all were where we were until we weren't. And I think everybody is just trying to figure out how to manage risk in, whatever they're experiencing, because there wouldn't be a need for a TV show, if it weren't super complicated, potentially life-threatening sort of risk that anyone has to consider when they consider stepping off the Orthodox Mormon path. It could be divorce, it could be losing your kids, it could be estrangement, losing friends, community, job, employment, income, all that's on the table. And for some, losing their lives it's not an exaggeration.
It's not an exaggeration because even insulated with financial independence and Housewives, a hit TV show, a best-selling book, things that you would think would give you these buffers, you still lose your community. You still lose your currency with friends. You still lose your friends. Your children lose their insulated environment. Their friendships change. Like, I felt the sting of it, even with all of the other buffers to kind of buoy me up.
Yeah.
And that is devastating.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it needs more coverage. And that's why I'm so excited for the possibility of a TV series and with you in it, because anyone who reads your book knows you're wicked smart, even though you might want to deflect that compliment, or maybe you'd embrace it. I don't know.
I've embraced wicked smart.
All right. So you're wicked smart and you're funny and have a great sense of humor and fun. I mean, that's obviously a core part of your testimony, your persona. And that is the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down, which is why I'm so excited for the possibility of this project.
I mean, you have to understand that that's so surreal for me to sit across from you and have you say to me that you're excited about anything I'm doing, because I just feel like my life out of Mormonism began when I came on this show. And I kind of want to talk to you about like why that was such a formative experience for me and why that's really the catalyst for me wanting to put myself in a position to solicit stories from other people. And what is the psychology behind sharing your story that is so powerful, both personally and in your ability to connect with others?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, because that's why you formed Mormon Stories, I'm assuming. There's something about the telling of the story.
I think literally before there was even writing, as soon as there was language, there was storytelling. And I think for tens of thousands of years, if you're okay with evolution, or hundreds, we sat around campfires, and the way that we had a memory, the way that we shared, the way that we communicated, the way that we taught each other is by storytelling. So I literally think evolutionarily, we are at our core storytelling people. That's how we make sense of the world, is through stories. Stories are engaging. They're interesting. They are important for teaching. And so stories are where it's at. And
So when you're telling your story, someone else hears parts of your story that resonates with them, and then it motivates them to tell their own story. Because I never really even thought I had a story.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so many of your guests are so incredibly, their stories are so incredibly moving and powerful and just heart-wrenching and painful. And like, you know, I felt like my story didn't have any of the merits, you know, that would make it worthwhile or listening to. And then, but coming on Mormon Stories, and it wasn't even about what I shared. It was just that whatever I did share resonated with certain people. Not everybody, obviously, but in a way that made me feel less alone and made me feel like I did have a story to share, which compelled me to do the book.
Yeah, it's ultimately empowering, psychologically healing and liberating to tell your story. And then when you tell your story, it makes other people feel like they're not crazy and they're not alone. So it's an act of charity for oneself and for other people.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and healing. It's healing. Stories are healing. Full stop.
Totally healing.
Yeah.
Totally healing. I mean, I think the first time I came on Mormon Stories, I spent like 9 hours, right? Like I came in 3 sessions of like 3 hours each, but I could have, like, sitting in this chair today, like I remember thinking, like, that feeling you get when you lock into a roller coaster and it goes up and you're like, well, I'm in, you know, like, I'm here, I'm on Mormon Stories. Like, I have ripped the Band-Aid off. Like, but I mean, now I'm so much more aware of the audience of Mormon Stories and your guests that are from all different points of their faith. But at the time, I had been taught and schooled that anything that talked about anything other than absolute praise for the church and didn't come out of the handbook was therefore, what's the word? Like, bad. Yeah. Beyond bad.
Forbidden, yeah.
Forbidden, dangerous, fraught with deceit.
Apostate.
Evil.
Yeah.
And so for me to, like, step across that threshold and then have the place that I feared the most be the nexus of healing, of community, of outreach, and of safety for the first time. Like, I thought I would come on Mormon Stories and be obliterated. And instead, I came on Mormon Stories and was embraced and realized, like, in Wizard of Oz, when all the munchkins are like, you think they're flowers, but they all lift their heads up and they're all munchkins and they're all people and they're here to help. That's how I felt. Like, I was looking at the world and all of a sudden people just started to sprout up everywhere. And it, it was incredible. And I thank you for that. I'm so glad Mormon Stories exist and I'm so, I feel so lucky that I got to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And be back here today saying, listen, this changed my life so much that I want to make sure as many people know about it as possible, you know?
Yeah. And also this TV show has the potential of giving other people the same chance to both heal themselves by telling their story. Because let's face it, being told you can't tell your story in an authentic way is like a psychological prison that makes you ill because you're just internalizing all these feelings of being silenced, of being not known, of conforming and not being authentic. Whereas the opposite is telling your story is healing for most people because you're not only expressing candidly, authentically, vulnerably who you are, but you're also serving others. And would you say you're healthier now than you were 2 or 5 years ago? Just in terms of the benefits to being authentic.
I think I'm so much healthier now. I mean, I think I'm healed. No, I mean, I still am in therapy, but I think
which is healthy, a sign of health.
a sign of good.
Yeah.
No, I was always taught therapy was a sign of weakness, but now I realize that it is a sign of health. Thank you for that. Yeah, I feel like it really is. Okay, well, you're going to laugh at me, but me saying like the healing comes in the sharing of the stories, like a testimony is created in the bearing of it. What is that phrase that we say? A testimony is born in the bearing of it.
Yeah.
That's the truth about the telling of your story, you know? And I think that for people that think they don't have a story to tell is the first sign that you probably do, you know? Because if you grew up with a narrative that proved to be false or that ultimately damaged or hurt or changed who you were and how you lived, and now you're picking up the pieces of that, like that in and of itself is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we, if people are saying, I wonder what types of stories, I know we don't want to cap it. We don't want to limit it, right?
Yeah,
but
because
if somebody's listening right now thinking, wow, I would be on national TV, that's terrifying or exciting. But then what types of stories are they even looking for? I think the answer is we don't even want to limit what if they're struggling, then we want them to consider what, is there an email address we'll be giving?
Yeah, we'll have an email address. It's New Project. Let me pull it up. New Project at, all right, here's the formal request. We are exploring a television project that I hope will extend the opportunity to share your story with more people who might be struggling with similar issues. If you think you might be interested, please reach out at newproject@slausonproductions.com and tell me a little bit about your story and why you think it could be valuable to share. And Slauson is SLAUSON productions.com. And I'm going to post this on my Instagram.
And we'll post it in the description wherever you're listening to or viewing this episode.
That would be great.
And so they're going to email and just kind of tell their story.
Email a blurb about you and your story and why you think why you're willing to share. And I think we're just casting the net as wide as possible because we don't know what people haven't shared yet, you know, and what they might want to share and what's out there. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And this is the first time that I've really stepped into this arena. And all I know is that when I wrote the book and came on Mormon Stories, my DMs and inbox was full of people sharing their own story. And that to me felt healing and powerful and connecting. And it is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it's all I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I want to explore it more because I'm still in the process of it. Like I am still deprogramming every day. And that's like why I get so excited when you allow me to come on your podcast because I'm like, oh, great, free therapy. Just what I've been needing. But it's, I just kind of feel like so much of my life the last few years has been a whirlwind, and there's been a lot of things that have been able to buffer, you know, the sting of leaving the faith I've always known. And even with all of those buffers, there's still questions that, you know, arise every day. There's still slights and microaggressions and hurts and, you know, shunnings and just kind of finding new footing in a new reality.
Yeah.
And it's just ironic to me that I went on reality television only to like realize that the reality I'd been living was just a complete facade. Mm-hmm. And there's something poignant and ironic about that. And I certainly am not losing the tongue in cheek, you know, factor of all of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, as I think about the possibilities, and this is just as all the opportunities that come up in my mind, I just think about all the stories that people experience or the types of situations people experience when they're navigating their faith, whether it's learning things about the church that they didn't ever know before, whether it's being afraid to come out to believing family and friends, whether it's living in a mixed faith marriage or hiding from your spouse what you really believe, or your kids or whatever. It's the LGBT Mormon experience, women in the church, people of color in the church, people who have been victims of abuse or other types of things. There's just so many people and categories of stories that are way too common that if any of those or other types of stories can get any type of spotlight, it for sure save thousands of lives at just as a starting point. And then there's just all the other people who are just going to benefit from feeling validated and from learning about what's involved in being in a high demand religion like Mormonism, you know? And I think this has a significantly broader applicability than just Mormonism. As you know, I think I told you, like over 60% of my YouTube audience has never been Mormon, which some of that's just a fascination of Mormonism, but some of it is just that Catholics and evangelicals and Orthodox Jews, and they don't have a Mormon stories equivalent. So they watch Mormon stories because they don't have the equivalent in their tradition. And they find, like I've found value learning for Leah Remini and Mike Rinder about my Mormonism, learning from Scientologists. So many other traditions are going to come to understand their experience better by looking through the Mormon lens. So that's the beauty of what you guys are hoping to do, I think.
I think so. When you stick to a niche or a niche topic that seems to only apply to a specific number of people, but you realize that these are universal narratives, you know, and that make for compelling stories and compelling experiences that are, you know, moving and fascinating and traumatizing and healing. And it's just all of it feels like I will be able, the more I learn, the more I realize I didn't know, you know, and I felt like I lived in a bubble for so long where I was not interested in, that's the wrong way to say it. I felt like I was in a bubble for so long where I was not open to hearing people's experiences because I was scared that it would affect my own footing and my own, you know, precarious position in holding it all together.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't want to discount anyone's experiences, discount anyone's own story, because now I'm like open to receive it. But that's taken time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really had my eyes half closed because I didn't want to negate all the good I felt about myself and my life. And like, the truth is, you know, like I'm 90% Mormon. So if I hate this faith, if I hate this community that hates me now, if I hate, you know, all these things, then there's a part that feels like there's some self-loathing because I wasted so much of my life living it. And I taught it to my children and I got married based on it.
Yeah.
And I chose my school based on it. And I chose my, you know, the clothes I dressed and the foods I ate, where I lived, how I spoke, who I considered myself to be, my major in college. Like all of this was not based on my own knowing, but based on, you know, a prescription that was handed down to me and that was, you know, identified in a handbook. Like, and I'm into rules and regulations. I like to read the terms and conditions, you know, and once they put me in leadership in the church and I got to read the handbook and I could go to like section 4.3.2, like, what do I do if someone wants to throw a baby shower for an unwed mother? Like, I like that level of granularity. Protocols save lives. And so there was something about the structure of Mormonism that spoke to me as a young girl, even though so much of me wanted to rebel against it. It was like that perfect storm of, I was willing to, you know, suppress any natural instinct I had of my own authentic self if Rule 4.7.2 said that I couldn't do it. You wanted to test the limits, but you also wanted to be the best Mormon you could be. And I think that's like this unique combination of competitiveness, ambition, and love for your family and community, that deep desire to belong. Even if you feel like you want to swim upstream, it's just so much more comforting and embracing to hide in the fold. And I now want to hide within the fold of the ex-Mormon community. They're much more embracing, and they're also more authentic to who I am. And it's just, I was thinking about this when I was thinking about coming on the podcast, like what I wanted to talk to you about. And I thought about our relationship and our friendship and how it was just so immediate, because just like when you go to girls' camp and you can immediately be friends with another member of the church. Like if you go to Vermont and you see someone in a BYU sweatshirt, you can immediately be friends with that person.
Yep.
Songs they sang, foods they ate, things they value. It's an immediate friendship.
Heroes they worship,
Heroes they worship, all of it. This is an immediate friend, an immediate identifier.
Yep.
Now, that immediate identification, it's like that relationship is so surface compared to if I meet someone that went to BYU and has now left the church. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, now the trove is open, and the relationship is just so much more intimate and authentic.
Yeah.
Because we can explore every aspect of our life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the absolutely enriching good things and the horribly traumatizing, debilitating things.
Yeah. Yeah. People like you and me, once we know we're both kind of Mormonism didn't work for us, but we shared such a great experience, we'll be able to, we were able to and could immediately share things with each other that we've never told our own siblings or parents, right?
100%. Like I almost said, it's like sitting with my bishop, but it's a billion times better. It's like sitting with your most trusted youth leader that caught you with cigarettes and is never going to tell your parents.
Yeah.
Like when you texted me this morning, like, do you want a coffee? Like I jumped scared and laughed, and I realized it's because I don't have to code switch with you. Yeah. I can talk about Mormonism and in both positive or negative ways, and you can be drinking a coffee. And that is just this unique space that I'm finding myself in. But I didn't have this community before.
Yeah.
I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. I was at Disneyland yesterday, and my best friend from high school, which I know she doesn't listen to Mormon Stories, so I can out her. I'm not going to fully out her because she might kill me. But her last name is she's a devout Mormon, will never leave. And is also one of my best friends. Of course, it's affected our friendship the last 5-6 years, as it does.
Yeah.
And I challenge anyone who thinks it doesn't to prove it.
Yeah.
But I saw this wine that they were serving that was based on her last name. So I took a picture of it at Disneyland, and I felt brazen doing this. I am an old woman. I have raised children. I have written a book called Bad Mormon with my picture on it. I've been drunk on Housewives, and I'm still scared to send a picture to my best friend that's known me since I was 15 of me drinking a glass of wine that's named after her. But she was funny and great about it, and we had like a little joke, and that felt like this huge victory for me in living authentically. And it makes me want to cry because that's so dumb. Yeah. I'm still scared to live authentically. Mm-hmm. And I'm rich and famous, and that doesn't change it. And so knowing that about my own experience makes me want other people to feel that freedom as well.
Yeah. I'll just tell you now, it is Mormon Stories' backbone is providing a platform to help others tell their stories. And that's what you are potentially about to do. And it's a huge gift to use your platform to enable other people to tell their stories. So if this works out, and I have every reason to believe it will, get ready for feeling a huge sense of gratification for helping others have the gift of telling their story.
I mean, all I can base it on is how formative it's been for me. Where's my Kleenex? I lost it. And that is what motivates me to, put myself out there more, because it works.
Yeah.
Like this format works. And like there's something really special about the more people that throw their kindling on the fire, like everything that I believed about as Mormonism, like, you get up and you bear your testimony of the truthfulness, even if you don't believe it, because someone might need to hear you testifying to it. Like, guess what? Someone might need to see you being brave, proving to your best friend that you drink wine, or owning it, because that paves the way for someone else to find their footing.
Absolutely.
In a world that is fraught with rejection and microaggressions and shunning, it is real.
Yeah.
The shunning and hurt and pain and loss of community is real.
Yeah.
And I felt it even as I was being insulated with a trove of riches, an embarrassment of riches in terms of people recognizing you, people knowing your story, people reading your book. You still, there's still loss associated with moving forward.
Yeah.
And there's something that I really want to honor about that. Like, I would never think telling your story is easy, as healing as it is, as beneficial as it has been for me, and as beneficial as it is for every time I listen to a Mormon story, I feel better, healed, moved, inspired, grateful. Even with that, it's, there's loss, and people should be commended for sharing their story and paying it forward.
Yeah.
They're heroes.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's an honor just to receive it,
Yeah. And I look at you and everyone who's ever come on Mormon Stories as a hero, every single one. And you don't get it until you do it.
A testimony is gained in the bearing of it. Bear your ex-Mormon story and find out what you didn't know, you didn't know, to speak it into existence as a man thinketh and as a man saith and speaketh it. It just, it changes you. And this is coming from a skeptic. I guess I'm just jonesing on it because I was a skeptic. Mm-hmm. I came on Mormon Stories terrified and doing it as an act of love and service. And I made my cool best friend, John. When I saw you get out of the car today too, I was just like, you're so much cooler than I remember. Why is that? Is that me that's changed or you that's changed?
I'm boring. I'm so Mormon.
I know that's what I feel like.
You say 90% Mormon. I feel 98% Mormon.
I know. And yet you are the Pied Piper. You're the prophet of anti-Mormons, and I'm the Pied Piper right now.
No prophets. I think we're moving away from that model.
Move away from the prophets, from the gurus. We are our own gurus.
Yeah. Okay. So before we do the final formal call and tell people again exactly how to reach out to a potential producer, what do we want to call the person they're emailing?
A production team.
Okay. Yeah. So before you email the production team about your story, let's end with, we can end however you want, but one thing I don't want to end without having you say very explicitly, and we've talked about it in different ways, but there's going to be sort of this question of, is this going to be an anti-Mormon? Is the intention of this to destroy the church, to take the church down, to embarrass the church, to shame the church, sort of like expose vibes, right?
Right.
And we don't know how it'll be edited or cut or what the final product would ever be, but we do know maybe what our intent is. And I know that with Mormon Stories, it's never been that, because I think you and I still have love for the Mormon church and the Mormon people, even if we also hate the harm that is caused to many. So if someone were to say, oh, you just want to create an anti-Mormon TV series to take the church down, how would you frame the spirit or the heart of what, you know what I mean?
Well, I would definitely not frame it as such. I would say that
where's your heart is what
my
I'm
heart
saying.
has been I didn't know that I had a story to tell. And lo and behold, my story has been told and sold over and over, right? And it was in the telling of my story that I realized how powerful it was for me personally and could have the potential to be for other people. And I value people, Mormon, or not, Mormon or otherwise, but people that have compelling stories adjacent to experiences around the church, positive, negative, or not sure what it is, and they feel compelled to share it. I want to create a space and a format that's unique to me to do that. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I'm not saying it right.
No, that's great. But the spirit isn't to mock or even to hurt or destroy. It's to
tell compelling stories.
Yeah.
It's to tell compelling stories about people whose lives have been affected by the church.
Yeah.
And I think, is it fair to say no one's going to take the church down?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
it's basically $1 trillion. If it's not $1 trillion monolith now, it will be in 20 years. It's $250 billion megalith.
Yeah, like I would almost say like I don't have no beef with the church. I'm only fascinated in the people that have left it and that are leaving it or are considering leaving it, because I want to know the who, why, where, why, how, and what of it all, because it helps me heal.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel less alone. And if it's just selfish reasons, it's got to, if it makes a difference to this one starfish to throw back in the ocean, like I'm that starfish because I'm healing myself,
I think the Mormon Church at this point has enough money and power to take God down. What do you think?
I mean, truthfully, like if you
God should be scared.
God should be scared. Watch out, Jesus.
All right. Okay. Well, before we do a final call, any other things we should know about just your life or catching up? Or...
Life is good. We just finished season 5. It was really, I had a lot of fun filming, and our relationships are deepening. And so as your relationships deepen, so do the topics you're willing to talk, approach. And I just feel like I just finishing my second book, A Good Time Girl. That's going to be available at the end of this year, early next year.
That's a
book
cool
number 2.
Announcement. Another book.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm really excited about that.
Good Time Girl.
Good Time
Look
Girl.
for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cover's going to probably be a little bit inappropriate, but not inappropriate. And, I'm still 90%
like your
Mormon.
shoulders will be visible?
I'm pretending to be a Girls Gone Wild.
Okay.
But it's censored, obviously.
Okay. Wow.
I know. Burying my shoulders in my knees.
You're deprogramming.
It is an act of deprogramming for sure. I'm like slowly trying to do these things.
What? But body empowerment? What?
Body empowerment. What? And like, I'm trying, my daughter posted she was wearing like this postage stamp size of a dress for her 21st birthday. And I had to just like, she's 21. And I still was like, cover your shoulders, put on a coat. Like it's deeply in me.
Yeah. I
see a crop top and I just cringe. Like, I hope I don't see anyone I know, like on my kids. And like, I'm still live under the auspice of, covering up, not covering up literally, but covering up literally and covering up anything that is aberrant to, the status quo. Like I saw a guy riding his bike to church today and I thought, you're not an individual just because you ride your bike to church and everyone else drives. Like there's such a limited latitude in how you can individualize. Individuation is so limited that like you are the one guy that rides his bike to church and that's what differentiates you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just the masses of everyone being so the same and how little room there is to, be unique.
Yeah. And I was joking with you. I sometimes drop an F-bomb.
Oh my gosh.
Just because it helps. I mean, and a believer is going to look at that and say, oh, well, the CX Mormons, blah, 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 or you're just trying to be. And there's like a degree to which when you deviate or like talk about the temple or like you said, a woman shows her shoulders. No one can, or like me, like this episode was brought to you today by Bjorn's Brew. Like, no, not really, but like things that to a Mormon seems radical and extreme and even anti-Mormon, for us can just be like liberation. It's just a way to reclaim your power. It's not done to stick a thumb in anyone's eye. It's not done to be shocking. It's literally done to say, I got to break those chains. And sometimes the only way to do it is to do the thing you were always terrified to do. It's like exposure therapy for someone with OCD in a weird way.
It is exposure therapy.
Yeah.
It's total exposure for therapy. You texting me, do I want a coffee? Was like, we're breaking generational chains. And like you dropping the F-bomb. Me having a reaction that, like is ridiculous. Like I drop the F-bomb all the time, but I'm careful. I'm conscious of who's around. And that just being able to just take off those shackles of conformity and fear.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that with other people, you know?
It's fun. And the more we model it, the more other people are going to feel comfortable doing it, breaking the chains.
Do you feel pressure to be like the model of post-Mormonism?
What I feel, yes, actually. I wanted to say some sort of lengthy, but the answer is yes, I do. Like if I F up, I was going to say if I fuck up. If I mess up, then like everybody, I worry that, and I don't really think this, but my Mormon brain, my ex-Mormon brain says I'll be letting down everyone who's an ex-Mormon that then becomes the subject of, see that John DeLynn guy, he's bad. And, and I feel like I would be letting down my community if I fucked up. And I do mess up. So like, it's an unwinnable situation.
Well, because I feel like you have to prove that you can leave Mormonism, be excommunicated, and still be this like sober, responsible, intellectual, kind, great father. You have to hit every single mark.
Ethical.
Ethical and not swearing. I mean, that's why, because I feel like you have to walk that line, and but that's your Mormon brain, right? That's my Mormon brain too. Like you owe it to, you may not believe, but your little sister still does. So you better just toe the line, like you have to prove that you don't fall off the wagon. And I mean, that's how I feel. Like I have to prove that, like, guess what? I'm successful and I drink. I'm successful and I swear. I'm successful and I don't wear my garments. Like I'm still able to thrive and I haven't fallen face down in the gutter. My kids didn't go to BYU and they are graduating with honors. My kids are going to out-of-state colleges and are thriving. All of these things I believed would never happen. I believed that if, they would end up miserable, addicted, pregnant, apostate. I don't know, like words like that. I don't even know, but anything horrible would happen if we let go of that iron rod for, an extended period of time. And we've let go of it. We've wandered off into the mists of darkness, the lone and dreary world, and have never been happier as a family. And I'm just speaking for me and my 3 daughters, because that's my family,
Talk about mists of darkness. We were in mists of darkness and we walked into the sun-filled prairie of beauty in my world. We joined the human race when we left the mists of darkness of Orthodox Mormonism. And I know that sounds heretical, but I feel like my eyes were opened when I left
and now you can
the church.
See.
Yeah. It's almost like the church was the garden of an artificial world keeping us ignorant. And then we left the church. It is kind of the lone and dreary world, but it's also the big, bright, beautiful world. But our eyes were opened,
And we only were able to see beauty before if it was in like that Truman Show facade.
Yeah.
And then we broke through the like blue clouds, the weather controlled environment, and felt the rain and felt the rage and felt the tears and felt it all. But it was such a richer experience.
Yeah, because it was real.
Because it was real.
And reality is beautiful and terrible. But I'd rather live in the terror and the beauty of reality than in a air-conditioned,
emotion controlled environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. That's a great metaphor. You got to use that in your show.
Well, I just used it now.
That's so great. Yeah. And that's not to say there weren't really good things in the church. It's just...
Well, it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff, you know, like it's just hard to know wheat from the tares. What do you separate?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, goats from sheep.
Goats from sheep. Yeah. Just
that.
determining what you keep, what you reject.
The chaff. What is it?
It's chaff and wheat and tares. I know.
Rusty.
Get
We're
our
not just
books of
bad
Mormons
Mormons.
out.
We're rusty Mormons.
We're not code switching back like we used to be able to.
Which is probably healing.
It's healing. It's healing. But the fact that we still we know exactly what we're referencing is troublesome. But it's, that's why I feel like my truest friends are the ones that grew up in it and have left it, because we see each other through all of it, you know?
Wouldn't it be amazing to have an episode just dedicated to all the ex-Mormons that are kicking ass in life? It's just like that's
the call.
We were supposed to become sex workers and drug dealers, and like, how about people that are billionaires now? You know, after leaving
and they're living
the
their
church,
best lives,
like happy, healthy,
healthy, thriving. I feel like my children are thriving. That was my biggest reason to stay. You know, I think that they took some hits socially because of the neighborhood and world we live in, but they are happy to take those hits because they're happier at who I've become and the life we live now. You know, they enjoy it more. I think they're thriving, and I didn't know they would. But
isn't that is so messed up, because number one, tons of Mormon kids are totally struggling because kids are struggling, you know, all throughout this country. There's a massive mental health crisis amongst teenagers and young adults. So Mormons can't even live up to the standard of their own kids doing great. So why should ex-Mormons have to live up to the standard of their kids doing great? Because they're going to be kids not doing great and doing great in or out of the church. It's really a red herring.
It is a red herring.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of like my kids, friends, parents hide behind, is like, well, they're still active in the church. So like, we're not looking at any of their other issues.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're not wearing crop tops and tank tops, and, you know, they're going to BYU.
Yeah. Well, as we know, I've been told by a really reliable source, and you may have heard this quote, that the church is telling people behind the scenes that 40% of returned missionaries in 2024 are leaving the church within 6 months of coming home from their missions. That's the statistic that I'm told the church is telling people behind the scenes. Like think about that. 40% of returned missionaries are leaving the church.
That's our life force, right? Like, as they come home, they get married, they go to the temple, they are tithing payers, and the next generation of leaders. Yeah. So it's the church is in crisis with its youth and its young adults. There's no question. So that's why this is an important thing to do, because whether or not you think people should stay in the church or not, people are leaving the church in droves. And so don't they deserve role models? Don't they deserve stories of empowerment and of healing and growth? Because if you're a decent human being, with or without faith, you want people to thrive wherever they are. So why shouldn't the people leaving a high demand religion like Mormonism have stories of healing and growth and empowerment and possibility? You're a bad person. Forget bad Mormon. You're a bad human if you don't want the best for everyone, regardless of their beliefs or status with the church, I think. I agree. And I would say, and if you are threatened by someone sharing their story because it is negative about something that you don't want to hear about, then that is immoral. Like to say, I don't like it, so I don't want to hear it. That is the most, exclusive, elite, snobby way of thinking.
But that is the irony there, is that is the most common Mormon reaction, is that snide little, they can leave the church, but they can't leave it alone. Why do you have to spend why don't you just leave and stay quiet? Why do you have to spend your life tearing, just by telling your story, they'll frame it as, why do you have to spend your life tearing down something that's so good and so helpful to so many people? Just be quiet and move on, move along and be quiet. That's the most common reaction.
Yeah, the most common reaction is like, are you going to ever talk about anything else? Maybe not. that. It's all you wanted me to talk about for the first 40 years of my life. Like maybe now I'm going to talk about it through a different lens.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a reason Mormonism worked for me. I was sharing my thoughts and faith every single day with every single person that would listen. And now I'm doing the same thing. It's just, you know, the needle's moved a little bit, but it doesn't invalidate, you know, what you want to talk about.
And the church has like 80 to 100,000 plus missionaries, depending on if you count the elderly senior missionaries. The church has like over 100,000 missionaries out there all day long trying to convince people to convert. Like, oh, really? The rest of us should say
So
be
we should
quiet?
just like let them have their fun.
Yeah.
It's just, I think but there's something about the way we were raised and just like the dog. I mean, we were taught just to run from anything negative or critical.
Yeah.
Critical even.
No, we
like if
swore
you
an oath.
love Russian literature, you read criticism of Russian literature. You don't just read people that love it. You know?
Yeah.
If you really have an infallible faith, then you should be able to hear anything from any source and be open to receiving it. And I had to be that way for the flip side in order to recognize how much I was limiting my knowledge to.
Yeah.
You have to, and it works both ways, you know?
Not just hear it, but welcome it. Like if you are really confident in your faith and in your conviction, you should welcome criticism and you should welcome any story. And if you love it, you should want it to be as healing and as positive for as many people as possible. And the only way the church has a chance to improve is if they know the way that it's hurting people. And so the church and its members should welcome any stories that would lead to the church improving for those who remain in.
Yeah, I'll send a copy of this podcast over to church headquarters.
Something tells me they're watching right now.
Somebody tells me, what stories are you interested in sharing? Yeah, it's totally true. And I was so afraid for so long, and I still am afraid, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Why is that?
Well, you never know, right?
Yeah, powers that be.
But, I mean, the world's moving in this direction, so...
The time is now, John. The time is now. Like,
sure.
It feels like the great day of just... is around the corner. I don't know how to say it.
No, humankind is moving, at least part of humankind, a significant portion of humankind is moving towards a future where people's lives aren't structured by, myths that have no scientific basis, that are rooted in bigotry. Like, there's no way to deny the fact that Mormonism and probably Christianity in some way has strong elements of misogyny, of the suppression of female voices. I mean, Catholic Church still only has male priests. Mormonism still only has a patriarchy. Like, nobody can question or challenge that.
Yeah.
You can ask whether that's good or bad for women or men, but it's rooted in patriarchy and misogyny. It's anti-LGBT. Many Christian churches are anti-LGBT these days. And the racism, the historical racism in the Mormon church, where dark skin is a curse from God, whether it's the Native American Lamanite story or the priesthood ban on Black Mormons for 150 plus years. There's no question that Mormonism is founded in racism, sexism, homophobia, misogyny, and core just deception about its factual truth claims, where both members and converts are not told the real story. So, like, that's just a fact. And we are moving towards a future where with the internet, and young people, organizations can't get away with that anymore.
Yeah.
They just lose all their moral credibility.
They lose their moral credibility, and it just feels like the progression of mankind this is the era of radical acceptance, as it should be.
Yeah.
You know, we had radical, as Mormons, as devout Mormons, believing Mormons, and I guess I should just say for myself, I had radical acceptance for absurd theories of Urim and Thummim and the Liahona and,
How about a 6,000-year Earth?
A 6,000-year Earth and, horses in the Mayan. Like I had radical acceptance for golden plates buried in a hill, that the Garden of Eden was going to be in Jackson County, Missouri. I accepted and made this and had confirmation bias and made these things work. And I didn't have radical acceptance for, sexual orientation, for, different forms of marriage, for different faiths, for different gender binaries. You know what I mean? I had a binary way of thinking and radical acceptance for ridiculous theories. And now I have radical acceptance for humans in whatever form or place or position they may find themselves, and radical acceptance of everyone's pain and everyone's experience, and much more skepticism for this bullshit theories. It's like we switched over.
Yeah.
And that is the funnel that I want to live my life through now. That's the lens that I want to look at. Like, I accept you as you present yourself to me and love you and join you.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So well said. You're so good. You are such a good spokesperson.
For what, though? What am I a spokesperson for?
For healing and growth.
Bad Mormon?
Post high demand religion, healing and growth. You're a great spokesperson for that. And I'm an authority.
You're the authority.
I am an authority.
Okay, well then let me ask you. Do you feel like, just talking to me, do you feel like you see growth in me? Every time we get together and do something like this where we talk heart to heart.
Oh, yes. Like the difference. I remember emailing you before you decided to come on Mormon Stories at all. And I'm like, this person has no idea what she's getting into with Mormon Stories. You hadn't even watched Mormon Stories when I first started interacting with you.
No, why would I? I'm not allowed to.
Yeah. So like the difference that growth you made between when I first reached out to you and then when you actually came on, I was like, whoa, she's going at light speed here, right? Mm-hmm. But then reading your book, I was genuinely impressed with the wisdom and the insight in your book.
Thank you.
So the difference between your coming on Mormon Stories and the book was another, light speed. And then the difference between that and now, I'm excited.
I'm your star pupil.
No,
I am.
No,
I'm
you're
your
a
star
badass
pupil.
who's taking life by the
ball sack, John.
The cojones.
Cojones.
And and healing and growing in a really inspiring way. It has nothing to do with me or Mormon Stories, but it's fun to watch.
It has everything to do with you and Mormon Stories, which is why I'm compelled to dive deeper into my own narrative and other people's that feel similar or feel like they have something to share.
Yeah.
Because it has been the most formative experience of my life, and it is something that I'm still wading through. And the more influence I can have during this next phase of life, the better.
I'll end with this. Like, when you think about Scientology, one of the things, and even Mormonism, what they did right, how much it would be impossible to calculate how much Steve Young or the Osmonds did for the Mormon image. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It'd be impossible.
Impossible.
Massive.
I have a Steve Young football in my football signed by Steve Young in my house still.
And by the way, I love Steve Young. I love Barb Young.
Yes, I love the Youngs. I love the Osmonds.
Yeah.
But I love them because they were my role models and deities.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, it would be impossible to calculate how much Tom Cruise and Leah Remini and John Travolta did for Scientology when it was on its ascension, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you got to pay the piper. Like, it is so powerful when somebody achieves celebrity status and they're coming out of a high demand religion that isn't healthy for a lot of people. So, like, whether it's David Archuleta or Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, or Tyler Glenn from Neon Trees, or you, like that's when the needle really gets moved. Because Mormon Stories is 250,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm thrilled with that growth. That's still most Mormon church members have never heard of Mormon Stories or me. The vast majority, probably 95%.
I think you're
have never
being.
heard.
I think you're
No.
being very humble because
no.
you can't even go to the barber shop without getting recognized. You are a local celeb and probably a global celeb.
No, but
you
I mean-
are a global celeb to an audience, but you are a local celeb to everybody.
No. I would position that go to any Utah Mormon ward and poll them. 95% have never heard of Kate Kelly, of Mormon, of any CES letter, Jeremy Runnels.
I agree with you.
There's a bubble.
I agree with
There's
you.
a really strong bubble.
There's a very strong bubble
Yeah.
because even I, drinking and living a little bit of a double life, I still didn't know any of those things until I started talking about it specifically with Dre.
Yeah. But Real Housewives is a whole different level.
It's a whole different level. It's far reaching and it means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And to be able to bring these worlds together, you know, just the far reaching aspect of it with the meat and the sandwich that means so much to me is, you know, I'm really, really, really excited about this project. It is like all I can think about.
Yeah. And for
Which
me,
is why I
it's-
text you about it all the time.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's an act of charity because I mean you're looking to do good in the world, and this is a way you're looking to do good. But for me, it's a profound act of courage and of I don't want to say charity, but just like being willing to use your platform more to help other people that are struggling. That's why I would have you on Mormon Stories right now to promote this project, is because that's the net effect of what you hope to do. And what I see as the outcome is that you're using your celebrity status, your connections with the industry to shine a spotlight on people who have experienced pain with the goal of minimizing pain in the future. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful way to say it. Like,
and empowering and healing people for the future.
let's empower and heal each other through the sharing of our experiences and extend it to as many people that feel like they have some kindling to throw on the fire.
Yeah. Okay, so grab your phone and I'm going to have
Okay.
you read the email address one last time. It is also going to be in the description, but I want you just to one last time tell people what
this
the
is
email
a call to all voices, small and loud, far and near, that if you have struggled or experienced similar issues or issues that have never been approached with the church and your experience with the church, we want to hear your story. And we want you to send a blurb of your story and why you think it'd be important to share to this email address. It's newproject@slausonproductions.com, SLAUSON productions.com. And just tell me a little bit about your story and why you think it's valuable to share.
What if they want to make a little sizzle, like a little 2-minute pitch video?
We'll take it, whatever they've
can they add
got.
a little-
Listen, shoot your shot. Shoot your
It's like
shot.
Survivor. It's like, I want to be on
Yeah,
Survivor.
yeah.
I guess Real
Casting.
Housewives has casting, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
casting is every television show has casting.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I think that this is a total departure from Housewives, obviously, and anything Housewives related. This is like, to everyone that has reached out to me because they've read Bad Mormon or because they've seen Mormon topics be discussed on Housewives or because they've listened to me on Mormon Stories. Like, if you feel like this is something that where you'd be interested in sharing and be valuable to share, then that's who we want to hear from.
Beautiful. All right. Well, please, audience, please consider this opportunity. Please take advantage of it if you so choose. And Heather Gay, it's so lovely to catch up with you again. And I hope you'll come back on. And I really hope this thing takes off.
I appreciate
Yeah,
you, John. I'd come
yeah.
on anytime. It's just free therapy for me and a chance to catch up with a dear friend.
Beautiful. All right. We'll keep up the good work.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Please, please take advantage of this. And hope you're having a great day, week, month, year. And we always appreciate your feedback at mormonstories@gmail.com. And we also look forward to, interviewing with us. So if you want to go to mormonstories.org, go to the About section, we have an application process for you to come on Mormon Stories as well. So feel free to take advantage of that if you want.
creating all these portals and venues to tell your stories. And the truth is, it's like grains of sand. There's so many compelling stories out there. Like, we could join forces for the next 10 years and not tell them all.
Yeah. All right. So take care, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again soon on Mormon Stories and on this exciting new production. We'll see you all again soon.